Hello, boys and girls of Credit Union Land, and welcome to episode 26 of the CUInsight Experience. My name is Randy Smith. I am one of the co-founders and the publisher of CUInsight.com, and it is my job on the show to have conversations with the best and the brightest of the credit union community. I'm lucky enough to get to pick their brains and see if we can't find a few nuggets that we can all learn from. Today's guest is Miss Lynette Smith. She has been in the credit union industry for over 30 years. The past 11 years, Lynette has been the president and CEO of True Energy FCU. You may remember them as their former name, Washington Gaslight FCU. In this episode, we talked a lot about the process of rebranding and how important that can be. So that's something to look forward to. Lynette also serves on the board of the African American Credit Union Coalition. That's where I met her originally when they had asked me to speak down at an event in Savannah, Georgia, which was a lot of fun. And she's also serves on the board of the Metropolitan Area Credit Union Management Association. So you can find Lynette everywhere. I always look forward to bumping into her at events in the conversations we have. In 2011, Lynette received from our friends over at NAFCU their CEO of the Year Award for credit unions under $150 million in assets. That's something we talked a lot about, is small credit unions staying relevant in this episode. This was a lot of fun. She had so many leadership and life hacks. We had a blast with the rapid fire questions in the end. So without further ado, I give you my conversation with Lynette Smith. Enjoy. Lynette, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time today. I've been excited to have this conversation with you. I always enjoy seeing you when our paths cross at all the credit union conferences. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Randy. I always look forward to seeing you at all of the numerous conferences that you attend throughout the year.
It is what I do. That's for sure. Delta loves me. I want to jump right into it. You've recently updated the brand of your credit union, True Energy FCU. I absolutely love it. I know when we were talking a while back, I told you I thought it was fantastic. What was it that made you feel like it was the time to do a refresh?
Okay, well, thank you very much. And we love the name too. In March of 2019, we were planning to celebrate our 80th anniversary.
Congratulations.
So you can imagine this was a milestone for our credit union, our board of directors and members. Over the past 10 years, I'd say, we have expanded our field of membership to not only include employees and current and retirees of Washington Gas, but we serve other energy community. We are serving the energy community, companies that have contracts with Washington Gas. So it made more sense for us to come up with a name that was more inclusive of our membership. It was just that simple.
Anything that you learned from the experience that you could share with other credit unions considering going through that process?
Yes, I would like to share it. It was a journey on a name change to True Energy Federal Credit Union. It was about a 14-month process.
Okay, wow.
From the selection of a branding company to the final announcement to our members in the industry. We created a branding task force of 7 individuals last year. And it was not only management, but it was board. So we took some of our board members and some of our management team, and we created a task force.
Did the board members have, or the people that you selected, did the board members have, say, marketing experience, or was it just people that love the credit union?
Absolutely. Our chair was the first one to say we need a task force. Okay. And then we have a chair of the marketing committee, and he said, well, I want to be on that. And then there are 2 other members that were passionate about the name change, and they said, well, I want to be on that. And before we knew it, we had 7 people
that's awesome.
on our branding task force. And which was good because it not only brings a perspective from the management side, but it also, they're members.
They're members, yeah.
So we could get their feedback as we were going along. So we selected a firm to create our name. They specialized in branding and not only with the credit union industry, but predominantly financial institutions, major, large companies. We reviewed, over 400 names.
Wow.
So it wasn't only about the name and what it meant to us, but it was also about the availability of the website domain. You could come up with the name, but if the website domain is reserved for another credit union, you can't use it.
Yeah,
that's how we got to 400. We also created a very detailed timeline that we followed step by step. So this timeline had who was responsible for what project. There are various projects when you do a branding, and it outlined that. And we held employees or the team responsible for making sure that they were executed. It had timeline, goals, objectives, and everything. So we did that.
Did you have somebody, was there someone inside the credit union who was kind of like the point person for that, keeping everybody, or was it?
I would say the COO.
Okay.
My COO really, he was the one that came up, developed the timeline and said, this is what we're going to do. And then we sat down as a task force. So what happened is the senior management team always reviewed everything before we sent it to the entire task force.
Okay.
So we had to look, we had pages and pages of things that had to be done other than just flipping a switch and turning a name on. When it came time to inform our members, we had to select another marketing firm.
Nope.
So you have a marketing firm that is really good on branding. They're going to come up with a name. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's a firm you're going to use to do your member awareness branding.
So did you know that going in that you were going to have to use two separate, or
no?
Something you learned along the way.
You learned along the way.
Yeah.
So the branding company had not really done a lot of credit unions.
Okay.
So they didn't have the skill set to help us execute it. But what I realized is, so when I had to do in January, I was doing requests for proposals for a branding awareness company that specialized in credit unions.
Yep.
And that's what I found. And I was very pleased with them.
Do you mind saying who you worked with for that?
Simon and Company.
Okay. We'll give them
They're located in California.
Yep.
And they guided us on the member awareness campaign, as I said, which was very critical. They also gave us the best practices. They had it down to a science. This is what you need to do. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Now they could not tell us everything that we had to change. Name, logo, branch, ATM, logo. They couldn't tell us that, but they could tell us this is a process that you need to follow. And then from there, I also reached out to NAFCU, and they were able to help me saying, okay, well, this is a process that you need to do. As a matter of fact, I reached out to NAFCU while I was doing my RFPs to make sure that I had the right company working with us.
Okay.
And they said, this is what you need. I went, and then I got a firm that mimicked what I was looking for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, tell me if you want me to say that differently.
Oh, no, that was perfect. All good.
Okay. So branding, as we said, it's a lot of work. And from NCUA approval, from trademark registrations, website updates, branch and ATM signage, down to the letterhead. All of that was on our timeline. And because there's so many things, and we'll look up after we started with our timeline, oh my, we forgot this. Then we had to go back and put that out there. I also reached out to other credit unions and CEOs who had recently changed their name, and they gave me advice on their best practices. And I'm going to tell you, Randy, this is what I love about the credit union industry. We are always willing to share information.
The amount of times that has come up on this podcast, it is so different, I think, than any other industry where we can pick up the phone, call somebody else, and they're going to show us all of it and not hold back, right?
Right,
So it's
right. I even had one CEO that said, "This is how my timeline looked."
just send over the timeline.
To share everything.
I love it.
And I'm happy to say that so far as of today, knock on wood, not one member has closed their account because of our new name.
Well, that matters. That's for sure. Like I said, when you first told me about it, I absolutely loved the name and how I like when a credit union that had a traditional seg base is able to find a name that still fits with that base. And I think you guys did a fantastic job. So congratulations.
Thank you. That's what my board wanted.
Yeah.
They wanted a name that would resonate. And I think we've created that with the name True Energy. Also, we could use it as a marketing tool. We'll be true to our members, true to the energy community. It just works. And, one of the things I strongly advise credit unions to do is to have frequently asked questions. We had 2 pages of them.
Yeah.
It covered every question that they would ask. So that really helped us as well.
That's a great tip, actually. There's a gentleman that I follow, read a couple of his books, and I follow his podcast. And one of the things he talks about are the frequently asked questions. If you can give people the answers to stuff, it can save even you a lot of time. So from a productivity standpoint, I want to switch gears a little bit here. I've always known you to be an advocate for credit unions and specifically smaller credit unions. I know that's something that you're passionate about. A few years back, you even were the CEO of the year from NAFCU. And so someplace that, like, when I was putting together kind of my notes for our conversation today that I wanted to talk to you about is, what do you see as the biggest challenges that the smaller credit union is, say, facing compared to maybe the larger ones?
Okay. Here's my list.
Yes.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. It's compliance, regulations, technology, cybersecurity, and human resources. So I'm going to go through why I feel all 5 of these is very important.
Okay.
Small credit unions have a hard time keeping up with resources and compliance and regulations. You don't have the staff to do it.
Yeah.
That's our biggest problem. So my advice to them is to make sure they belong to a CUNA or NAFCU, an organization that can help them on that end. Small credit unions also don't have the funding to get the latest and greatest products and services, which involve technology enhancements. So that is very important to me, that if you don't have those resources to keep up with all the technology that exists, the wallet, and all of those technological names, I don't want to say that, but they can't keep up with that.
Do you think in some respects, though, can it help small credit unions by maybe doing stuff that they couldn't do before?
Well, I'll tell you, and I would say yes. So far as the website, home banking, bill pay, and has really helped credit unions. We do P2P, person-to-person transactions. Yeah. So I think if they put that infrastructure, as a matter of fact, we are 125 million in assets. So when we started on this journey 10 years ago, we didn't have the technology. We only had 1 branch. So we knew we had to be a credit union that could serve people outside of this branch. And that's the infrastructure that we have. And right now, I'm happy to say we can do everything the Bank of America can do, but it's that technology that either you have it, well, you have to have the funding to have it.
Yep. One more question on that. Was that something, like you said, 10 years ago that really didn't exist for you? Was that something that from like a board level they bought into and they were like, we need this? So
absolutely, they bought into it because we did not have the technology 10 or 11 years ago. And we knew that in order to be competitive, we had to bring the technology to the credit union. We would not survive if we had not done that.
Yep, that makes sense. I'll let you keep going. Yeah, other ones.
Also, to have that infrastructure to handle cyber threats, making sure no one's coming in and taking your members' information is very much a challenge. Now, I just mentioned all of these challenges, but coupled with that, our salary structures may not be competitive as larger credit unions. And I get that. Well, you don't pay what the larger credit unions pay. We can't. But yet we will demand that our employees do multiple functions.
I was going to say, you have to wear every hat, right, in the credit union.
Some employees look at that as an experience. They're getting more experience. If you go to a larger credit, you're just going to do that one function. When you come here, you're going to roll your sleeves up and what you have to do. And that's what we do from top to bottom.
I have a question on that. Across the board, and you and I have been at quite a few of the conferences the past couple of years, like that idea of the war on talent across the industry is like a big topic of conversation. From what you're saying, to me, it sounds like it would be even tougher at a small credit union because maybe the pay structure isn't as high or it's not as specialized. Is that something that, as a leader and a CEO, do you look, what I almost want to say, like, do you sell the idea that you can learn many aspects of the credit union, like you said, and do you sometimes know that you may not keep the best employees forever because they may be moving on to other things? Or
we do sell that, and that they would get a lot of experience. And quite frankly, a typical millennium, you may not only keep for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah,
just expect that.
Yep, that's what you know. So
it's just a churn and burn in regards to that. But if you hire employees that are willing to learn and help the credit union grow, and that's what I'm looking for when I hire people, then that's a win-win. They may only help me grow for 3 years, and then they move on.
And you have more people in our industry. You're helping the whole industry grow at that point. One of the things that I guess I really wanted to touch on while we were talking about the smaller credit unions, and I know this is something that and I have talked about in the past, just in the past decade that like CUInsight's been around. We've seen the number of credit unions cut in half. When we started CUInsight 10 years ago, we were talking about 11,000 credit unions. You actually earlier today sent me some numbers over from NAFCU that I think it was 5,300. It is. That's more than, it's been more than cut in half now.
And what's more daunting is that 71% of the 5,300 are credit unions under 100 million. The other 29% are credit unions over 100 million.
Yeah. I mean, so that's something that I'll tell you that I really did want to ask you about is like, what do we do? I guess, first it's to kind of stop the trend, right? Before you can even reverse it and maybe start going the other direction. But how do we, I'm asking you to solve all the world's problems. How do we save the small credit union that we both know and love?
Okay. Well, Randy, that is a good question, and one that I have struggled with for 30 years in the credit union industry. So in May, it will be March. March is 30 years in the credit union industry. So for me to do this with CUInsight was just a wonderful opportunity.
No, thank you. That's amazing. And thank you for giving 30 years to this industry that we both love. Wow.
So a possible solution for credit unions, and this is possible, this is my wish list.
Okay.
would be to have major vendors in the industry view credit unions as a cooperative group and not credit union by credit union.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you an example. So I've talked to smaller credit unions in reference to their particular contracts, which are volume based. If they don't meet the requirements for negotiating a lower cost per transaction, they pay a higher cost to do the same transaction because they're smaller. But yet, when you look at the trade associations, theirs is more structured on, their association dues are structured on asset size. When it comes to the vendor relationships in the industry, I don't think they look at us as a cooperative together. I feel that they look at us individual.
Okay.
And I don't know how they can resolve that. And I don't know whether it takes NCUA coming in saying, maybe this you can look at it as a cooperative. And if you find this little cluster that's using a particular product or service, they could be conceived as a group and not as a small credit union trying to struggle. That is my biggest fear, is that credit unions there'll be fewer and fewer credit unions in 10 years from now.
And I think we both believe smaller credit unions are so important to the communities they serve, oftentimes where nobody else is serving them. So,
right. And let me give you another example. When it comes to contracts, because it's all about what credit unions are paying. It's all about their operating expense ratio. And as you and I discussed and looked at, the average operating expense ratio for a credit union under 100 million is 81% versus over 100 million is 68%. We are paying more to do probably less transactions, as we just said. I don't think that credit unions have the resources to do due diligence contract management.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So there are companies that can provide this service at a reasonable cost. And sometimes they're providing it if they save you money in the long run. So if they're not saving you any money, you don't get charged. But if they can save you $100,000, then they may want a small portion of that $100,000 over a 5-year period or whatever. That's just looking at an example. I think small credit unions say, I can't use this company, but they're out there and all they do is contract negotiations for you. They have the knowledge. They've seen what other credit unions are paying per cost. And I don't think that we're using those companies as much as we could.
It's an interesting idea you bring up, though, too, is if certain credit unions all came together in a geographic area, you still have all your own anonymity, but you're just negotiating contracts together, maybe. Or one of these groups like that you're talking about, maybe they bring in 4 or 5 and say, let's negotiate as a group for X or Y, so.
And I think a few credit unions has tried that. I don't have the statistics on whether that will work, but it's just my suggestion.
It will be interesting if somebody listens. Maybe they can shoot us a message if they know that's happening successfully someplace. So I love the idea. That's for sure.
I also feel that board of directors and CEOs need to clearly see the warning signs of a failing credit union and seek a merger candidate of their choice well before NCUA does a forced merger, which could impact the share insurance fund. I have seen so many examples where their net worth falls. They wait till that net worth falls below 7% and scream. No, if it's approaching 7% and you do your forecast and you know that 7% will be down to 5%, you're almost doing your membership a disservice if you don't look for a merger candidate. That's just my opinion. And I can say that because I did one in 2014. It was a small credit union. There were $3 million in assets. They were struggling. And it was Virginia Gas Credit Union. So it made sense for them to come into our field of membership.
So let me ask, when you say when they're forecasting out, is that on the management of the small credit union? Is that on the board of the small credit union? Like, who is it on the regulators? Like, who do you view as being responsible to kind of proactively take that look?
I would say it would be the manager.
Okay.
And the manager reporting to the board on the results.
Yeah.
I would keep NCUA out of it. I think you're in a better position to really even negotiate retaining the employees. Because if you let that net worth go below, they're going to say, no, we're not keeping the employees. I think when the red flag, when you are approaching 7% and you don't see a way out, because when you get down to 5, NCUA is asking you for a restoration plan.
Yeah.
And that restoration plan would show how you're going to get back to 7. If you don't clearly see that, then I think you're doing your members and your employees a disservice.
Understand. To me, that's it's a tough topic. It's one that I think or at least it seems like from conversations that I have across the industry, everybody wants to save the smaller credit union. We don't want them to go away. We think they're part of what make us so special. And I mean, you had the numbers here earlier in the conversation, and yet somehow we got to stop that. Like we have to stop it just from happening. We're not, like you and I aren't sitting down having a conversation 5 years from now talking about 2,500 credit unions, right? So,
I hope not.
yeah, me too. I'd like to move on, as we wrap up kind of the first part of the show and talk a little bit about the African American Credit Union Coalition. I think the place that we actually met a few years back. You've been on the board for quite some time there. Can you tell us, I mean, a couple different things, like what do you view the mission of it as, and why is it so important for you to be actively involved?
Right. So, give you the background. ACUC was formed over 20 years ago. So its mission was to increase the diversity awareness within the credit union industry. And I've been honored to serve on the board for 8 years. We focus on mentorship, professional development, and advocacy. What's really important is the mentorship. Because years ago, when you would go to the GAC, 20 years ago or 25 years ago, unfortunately, African Americans were kind of afraid to speak to each other. They had no room that they could get in and really talk about their challenges. So that's where ACUC came into place. I also want to say that ACUC has played a major role in my professional development. I can see where it has helped Lynette.
Yes.
Over the years, I've made connections and I have mentors. I have mentee relationships with many credit union leaders who have offered advice on various topics, subject matters relating to the industry, and have helped me. So when I got a call asking to be on the board, I was honored.
Yeah.
I didn't know whether I can do it because there were so many people that were on the board that they were like very well known in the industry. And here I am, little small Washington Gas Light credit union, But I think that's a life thing I like about ACUC is our board is diverse in assets.
Yeah. Yep.
So you don't have all small credit unions running it. You don't have all large. You don't have all CEOs. You have executives at different levels of the credit union that all bring in different perspectives as to what mentorship and professional development should look like.
I know just recently the conference comes up in August, but
and I'm going to talk about that.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that, and we will link everywhere to that so people can sign up and go. But I just spent some time. I actually had dinner. I was at a different event with Maurice Smith, who is getting the award for lifetime achievement, which is obviously very well deserved. We are
very excited about Maurice, and he has been very helpful to the ACUC organization.
He was on one of the early podcasts, and I could have talked or just listened for hours. So it was, I absolutely loved it. So
yeah, he is a one of a kind. He really is.
Let me ask this. There is a question that I have, and it's something that I think I've always loved and respected about the organization is anytime I talk to anyone about it, mentorship is the first part that comes up. So, and I think that is just such a fantastic thing because none of us get here alone or how to do things. I even think of the beginning of CUInsight. There were people that I reached out to who knew a heck of a lot more about publishing and news than I did because I didn't have a clue, but to be able to provide that as almost like like I said, that there aren't many organizations that I can think of that when like almost to a person, when you talk to them, they're like, it's mentoring, and you're talking about the relationships that's built for you on both sides, the mentor and mentee, that's right. I think that's fantastic.
It's very critical to our existence as an industry.
Yep.
If professionals are mentored, then they become better employees and they grow professionally in their careers. And they help the industry. And I think that's what it's all about. I didn't even touch on the internship, which we tried to get them at the college level.
I love that.
To have an interest in working for the credit union. And we have an internship program. So if anybody is interested, go out to our website. We want to put people in positions at credit unions while they're, on their college break for the summer.
We will link to that as well over on the website because that is fantastic. It was interesting from a payments and fintech side. Doug Layton, who was on an earlier episode from Visa, talked about that across the board, they, like Visa as an organization a few years back, changed their hiring process because it used to say you needed 10 years plus of payments experience. And you're like, and he was like, didn't mean that we weren't getting fantastic people, but guess what they were? All the same. And so he's like, that's not even in Visa's, but it was a very similar thing to what you were saying, where it's like looking at college age to say these can be great jobs and fun and exciting jobs that, people maybe don't take a look at. So
absolutely. I love that. I think one of our missions, and it's not indicated in our mission statement, but we want to be representative of the members we serve.
Absolutely.
We have over 106 million members. So African Americans need to have a presence.
That's the seat at the table, right? Seat
at the table.
It's making sure that it's something that I've talked with Jill a lot about, the idea that whether it's boards or senior management, that it should look more like society in the membership base, right?
Exactly. I think one of our things that we have done over the last couple of years is to prove our value. Because when people say, why do I want to join AACUC? Well, for professional development and mentorship. Through that, our annual conference is awesome.
Yeah.
We have now webinars that are online that our members can take advantage to. And these are topics that are relevant to the industry. So there's a value added. We're not just a once a year you come to our conference, but we try to keep our members engaged throughout the whole year.
We will make sure to link to all of that as well. That's fantastic.
And I can tell you another thing about our guest speakers that attend our conference. They're not always trying to sell you a product or services, but they really work very hard at providing you information and informing you on tools that you can take back to help your credit union. And that says it. That's how we try to be unique. That's what we want to do.
I've been to your conference a couple different times. I know the one time was in Charleston, South Carolina, and it's a story that I tell often. I was sitting having coffee, and next to me was Jesse Jackson. Come to find out he was speaking also. He was your keynote. And I was like, wow, and this is just awesome. It was such a big deal. And I'll never forget it. After I spoke, you guys had just announced that the next year was going to be in Detroit, and that's where I'm from. And I said, if you guys have me come back, you're going to make my mother very happy. And you did. So I've been a few times. So we're
hoping you're going to come to Charlotte.
I'm going to actually be out of the country then, or I would, but there's a really good chance that somebody from my team will be, because they all live down in Greenville and they can drive right up. So,
hey, I'm going to hold you to that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's,
okay.
that we will, someone from CUInsight will be there. I am going to be traveling then, though. That's taking a little time away. So anyways,
make it easy to join.
Yep.
Everything is electronic. Simply go onto our website, aacuc.org, and complete the member application online.
Like I said, in the show notes, everything will be linked to, and I hope people really do check it out, because like I've said, my experience, whether it's at the reception at GAC or at your annual event that I've been to, I absolutely love it. So we're going to drive people there.
And I think the industry is watching us, because every year our event at the GAC gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's
what you want to see. You want to see growth. You want to see where your membership dues are going towards. That's a free event that we offer every year.
Yep. And we'll get people signed up with you guys, and that way they'll be there next year. So I'd like to move on to the second part of the show. And this is an area I was really looking forward to talking to you about, knowing a little bit about your background, but the leadership and life hacks. You just talked about mentoring. I'd like to share a little bit about you. To step back, what inspired you to take the gig originally as president and CEO of now True Energy FCU?
Well, a phone call one evening, 11 years ago. So I don't know how that recruiter got my telephone number at home and asked me, did I want to interview for the position at Washington Gaslight Federal Credit Union? Having worked for government federal agency credit unions.
Okay, yeah.
I said, Washington Gaslight? I went upstairs because, back then we didn't have laptops and things. I went upstairs, looked on my computer, and I saw that there were 71 million in assets with a net worth of 24%.
Okay.
So I went into the interview saying, there's an opportunity to serve your members more.
Yep.
And I guess they said, we'll hire you and you prove it. Fast forward to we're 125 million and our net worth is at 13%. I took the job because I had been a CFO for 16 years at a larger credit union, then a COO. So I felt that my skill set was transferable to a CEO. Also, being an African-American female, I wanted to take on the challenge because there were few in the industry that looked like me. That was really my driving force for becoming a CEO and having the opportunity to run a multi-million-dollar company, credit.
I'd like to piggyback on that. So to me, that's a fantastic inspiration on why you wanted to do it. Now that you've not only became the CEO, but you've been successful in growing the credit union as well. Has the inspiration at all changed? And is that one of the reasons maybe that you're so involved with other organizations to help other people have that opportunity as well? Exactly.
One of my highlights, I could say, is being a part of changing the name of a credit union. That's huge.
Yeah.
I don't know how many CEOs get that opportunity, which is now attached to my professional legacy. And that's important to me, and I find it very humbling.
That's beautiful.
Did I answer your question?
You are answering my questions. We are good. So how would I have a question?
I also, in reference to that, if I could also add what I have, being a small credit union, I did have a board of directors that empowered me over the years to run the credit union operations. And they also allowed the senior management team to be included in the strategic direction of the credit union. We are a team. It's the board and senior management that makes the decisions on the growth of our credit union. And
how would you describe your leadership style? Speaking of
well, my leadership style, well, of course, the board leads me.
Every CEO has the board.
I would say it's all about empowerment.
Okay.
And one thing I try to do is listen to others. I don't lead by fear. Can't do it.
You can't, not doing that.
I can't do it. I pride myself in trying to always be truthful and let employees, and I call my employees Team True Energy, know why we are here. And of course, that is to serve the members of True Energy Federal Credit Union. That is our main priority. I also believe that training and education opportunities are a must. You have to train employees to do their job. You have to send them to seminars so that they can see best practices at other credit unions. And being a small credit union, cross-training, as you know, is very important because, as I said, you have to roll your sleeves up, roll them up to get the job done. We've said that twice already.
I think that's a given when you talk about many credit unions. So has your leadership style changed with experience? You just mentioned that March was 30 years in. You've been the CEO now for 11. On previous podcasts, people have talked about it's a big difference when you're actually leading the organization instead of having someone else that you're kind of reporting to. So I think you mentioned COO and CFO beforehand. Now as
CFO and COO, yes.
COO, right? So now as the CEO for the past 11 years, has that leadership style changed at all?
To some degree, I've always led people. I've always been in management roles. When I came here 30 years ago, I came in as a vice president.
Okay.
I didn't work my way up to the top. I came in as a leader. So what I can say is that I'm much wiser with the experience of being a CEO. And quite frankly, I love being a CEO more than I did being a CFO and a CFO.
You were meant to do it.
Well, I don't know. You always have the final say in operations. You always have to take the hit when things are bad, and you take credit when things are good. I also have realized that it's okay to make a mistake every now and then. I tell my team all the time, admit it and correct it and put in place procedures to prevent it from happening again.
Is that something that they could finish your sentence as you start saying it? Yes. So effective leaders also, in my opinion, should not be afraid to hire someone more knowledgeable in a particular skill set than you. And I learned that right before I came to the industry from a CEO at a hospital. I was a director at a large hospital in this area. Yeah.
Director of accounting. Never ever be afraid to hire people that are smarter than you. And sometimes that intimidates some people, but it doesn't intimidate me.
That to me, and I think you were 100% right on that. But my guess is that sometimes with age and experience, you understand that more. I think something that's been a common theme on the podcast is that idea that when we're younger, we're trying to prove ourselves to everybody. So we think we have to do it all or do it, be the best at it.
Yeah.
Then we get older and wiser and we say, oh, wait, no, let's bring smart people around us as well. Right. So.
And I've done that in the last 30 years and it has really helped me.
I love that. When you think back to earlier in your career, you mentioned whether it was management at the hospital or, in the 30 years of credit unions, was there either maybe a mistake you made as a young manager or one that you see people make as they're getting their first chance to lead?
Yeah, I do. And I'm going to tell you.
I'm ready.
Waiting too late to terminate an employee when they are underperforming.
That's a tough one.
It doesn't help that employee who is struggling to perform, and it's not good for employee morale. So you need to nip it in the bud.
Do you have is it a policy or I remember early on at CUInsight, another small business owner friend of mine, it was just black and white, 60 days, if you weren't a superstar, you were gone, that type of a thing. Is there a policy that you have? Is it something that you look at very closely when you first hire somebody, or is this an ongoing process that
We have a 50-page human resource manual, which we make employees sign every year.
Okay.
And in that, it does talk about warnings. And when we give an employee a warning, 3, in most cases, up to 3, you could be asked to, turn your resignation in.
Yeah.
So that has helped us. We document, and documentation is so important in human resources. You have to document why that person is not performing, and you need to tell them.
Yeah.
This is why. And we even have them sign that warning.
Well, I mean, if people don't know what they're.
So it's very clear why they're, going to be let go. It's not a good feeling when you do it.
No, never is.
You do it the right thing. Sometimes as a CEO, you do things because they don't feel good, but it's the right thing to do.
The buck stops with you. You're the boss. So has there been a piece of advice or a life lesson that you received that you find yourself going back to over and over again during your career?
Treat people right. Be open and honest with them.
That is a good one.
That's probably, with me, what you see is what you get.
Is that something that came from your parents or your upbringing?
I'd say it probably came from my parents. I came from a military background, so they were very clear on the disciplinary action, and they were very clear on their expectations. So the expectations that they instilled in me as a child growing up are the expectations that I'm instilling in my team.
That makes a ton of sense. It's our parents give us a lot. That's for sure. I wanted to ask, this was a question I was looking forward to asking you, and even more so now when you talked about the mentoring and the network that you've created over time. But if you run into a wall or you're having a problem, like even when you talked about doing the rebrand, you talked about reaching out to other people in your network. Is that something, as the CEO, a lot of the times you're kind of sitting on the island having to make that last decision after it all flows to you? Do you have people both inside and outside the industry that you bounce stuff off of, or like what's that network look like? How do you bust through problems when you need a question answered?
I have a wonderful network. So my network consists of board members and colleagues on the ACUC membership. I also am on the board of the Metropolitan Area Credit Union Association. That's another local association that provides, a form of mentorship, menteeship. I also have lunches and breakfast with a few other CEOs. We get together and, no one knows we're meeting. And what we say at that table stays at that table. And I do have that. And that has really helped me along the way.
I am with you. I think that is so important. The amount of times that I've, knowing I'm going to be at a conference or something and see somebody's going to be there where I'm just like, can we go to dinner or lunch or breakfast? Right. I don't care. Let's get a coffee, but I'd like to pick your brain about some stuff.
Another thing is that various conferences have roundtables.
Yep.
Those are another great opportunity for you to take advantage and to network. So I always, if I'm in a conference and they have a CEO roundtable, I'm the first one there because
you're the first one in. I want to move on to not that this whole thing hasn't been fun, but the kind of the fun part of the show. If you have a free day and there's nothing on the calendar, which I'm not sure you ever have free days, but no, you seem very busy. What passions outside of credit unions do you have? What do you do to recharge?
I'm pretty simple. Spending time with family and friends is what I look forward to every day of my life.
I love it.
It keeps me recharged, and I have a purpose in life. Credit unions, I will not be in the industry forever. Your family and friends live on and on. Another thing I like to do is I love to travel. And, I want to see the world. I have a bucket list of places that I have planned to go to, in the near future. I love to travel.
We should compare lists. That is my passion as well. So is to see as much of this beautiful world as possible. I'm pretty geeked up. It'll probably be about the time that this episode comes out. I'm going to Kenya for the first time on a DE trip. So I am so excited. It is.
And as a point of reference, ACUC we've sent members over there to work in the DE program. Yeah. Maurice is gone. Tim Anderson is gone. Bert Hash is gone.
I think Bert might be going.
Renee Sackfight met recently, our executive director. So
I absolutely. I am so excited about that. All right. So the fun part, the rapid fire questions. The questions are rapid. Your answers don't have to be. So do you have any daily routines that you do? And if you don't do them, your day just kind of feels off. I give the example that I journal in the morning. I write things down to kind of get my head clear before I start my day. Anything that you do?
Well, a daily routine would be to have some form of exercise.
Okay.
Also, a daily routine that I do every day is because we are a small credit union, I go around and speak to every staff member that is at this location. We have an off-site location.
Yep.
Half of the employees are here, half of the employees are in the admin office. But I go and I look everyone in the eye and speak to them and say hello because I want to make sure that they're okay.
So that makes
awesome. Me feel good.
Is that something you've always done?
Absolutely.
Since
because
day one?
when I know that somebody's a little off, I'm talking to the supervisor or they're not smiling. Okay. Because I believe that if people are happy at home
Yep.
or their personal lives, they'll be happy at work. And so you can't manage that. You want to be mindful of it.
Absolutely. That's the whole human thing, right? So
Exactly.
the random question, what is the best album of all time? That one you can listen to without skipping a song.
Well, I don't know whether I have a favorite one. I like Anthony Hamilton.
Okay.
His songs are very moving and inspirational. I love to listen to gospel. I love to listen to jazz. I like a little country rock every now and then. So I guess I'm multicultural when it comes to music.
Whatever the mood, eh?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I am a music fan. So I'm a big reader. It's one of my favorite questions always to ask on this show. We have a stack of books around our house, and most have come from people recommending them to us. And Amazon makes it very easy to buy. Is there a book over time that you've either gifted people or that you've just told a lot of people to read?
I can't say that I can answer that. I don't read a whole lot. My husband does more reading than I do. I can't say that I have an answer. I know there have been, I really enjoyed reading Managing and Leading Well. Nephew put out that was Anthony Dimagani and Dan Berger.
Yep.
Put out a book on that. And I like reading the Bible sometimes too. So I'm kind of all over the place when it comes to reading, but I don't do a whole lot of reading.
Another question, rapid one here is
because I spend too much time here.
Yeah, you're working too much.
I work too much. I have to read all this compliance. I mean, who has time to read?
I think someone else answered NCUA rules and stuff like that, but that wasn't what we were looking for. Maybe you'll have more time to read also when you're traveling the world and you're on the airplanes, right? As you've gotten older, what has become more important to you? And on the flip side of that, what has become less important? And I like to frame that by saying, like, what advice would you give your 25-year-old self?
To my 25-year-old self, learn from your supervisor. So you have good qualities. Disregard the bad traits. Don't take them with you to the next job. I can speak for that. Yep. That's what I've practiced. Find a mentor and ask questions that you may not ask your coworkers. Sometimes millennials like to share too much with their coworkers. They probably need to go and speak to someone else because that coworker will go back and repeat it, and that's not a good thing. So I think if any word of advice, be mindful of who you share your information with. Find a mentor, as we said, or a sounding board for you, someone that can give you an unbiased opinion. And a lot of times that's not someone here in the credit union.
Yep.
It could be a relative. It could be someone at another credit union. But, find that person that you can confide in. And always remember, life is a marathon and not a sprint. Because I think our younger generation wants immediate gratification. Immediate. It's not going to happen. After being in the industry for 30 years, I can attest to my professional development. As I said, it's a marathon and not a sprint.
Not a sprint. There is a question that I didn't send you, and I don't ever send anybody, but I love to ask it in the end. So
let's hope I can answer it.
It's a surprise question. When you hear the word success, who's the first person that comes to mind?
I would say Martin Luther King, success, because he started the conversation on racial issues.
Yep.
And I could say all of the entertainers and performers behind him, the Muhammad Ali.
He has been mentioned before on the show, too.
Set the tone for what success is. I'm very proud that we had an African-American president for 8 years. I'm very proud of that. That would be a success also. Those are the successes that I see.
That is perfect. The last question for you here, and then we will wrap it up. Do you have any final asks of our listeners or any final thoughts you'd like to share?
I will give people an advice.
Okay.
As a leader,
Yes.
take care of yourself. If you take care of yourself first, taking care of others becomes an easy task. So if you take care of yourself, taking care of others becomes an easy task. You have to take time out. I mean, I take time out for myself, whether I like to go shopping, often read a book, or listen to some music. You have to take time for yourself.
I think that is the perfect way to wrap it up. I absolutely love that. We will link to everything that we talked about in the show notes today. Is there a preferred way for people to get a hold of you if they have additional questions? Email, Twitter? How do you like to be reached out to?
Oh, well, I do have a Twitter account.
We can find it.
But on LinkedIn, how about that?
LinkedIn. That's even better.
On LinkedIn under Lynette Smith, and you'll see where we talk about our True Energy name changing and everything else.
We will link to your LinkedIn profile as well.
And I'll tell you something real funny. So my manager of member experience is listening to what I'm saying, and when I say it, is there a success, she points to herself.
herself.
So that if she's a success, then I'm a success.
Then you're a success too. I love that. Yeah. If your team's a success, then you must be as well. So
she feels she's a success, then I'm a success.
You're doing well. Well, Lynette, thank you so much again for being on the show. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I hope all of our listeners do as well. So thank you all for listening, and I hope everybody has a great day.
Thank you for having me.
Enjoy.